Tonight is a particular honor for me because, let's face it, my presence on this stage is pretty unlikely. Through hard work and perseverance, my father got a scholarship to study in a magical place, America, that shone as a beacon of freedom and opportunity to so many who had come before. I stand before you today to announce my candidacy for President of the United States of America. I accept your nomination for presidency of the United States. If there is anyone out there who still doubts that America is a place where all things are possible, tonight is your answer.
So how did he do it? How did this guy that no one ever heard of, a state senator from Illinois, go on in 4 years to become the President of the United States? I was there, July 27, 2004, sitting in the Fleet Center in Boston, Massachusetts, during the 2004 Democratic National Convention, watching this keynote address of this guy named Barack Obama. I had never heard of him before. Most people hadn't either. But he did it because he has mastered the 5 secrets of the world's greatest communicators. And this DVD is about teaching you to do the same thing so you can achieve whatever you want in your personal life and in your business life. I have studied for decades the art and science of communication. I've worked with Anthony Robbins. I've been privileged to coach presidents, prime ministers, CEOs, and even Princess Diana, and give speeches and seminars in 26 countries around the world. And I spent a year and a half researching and analyzing the 20 most amazing and inspiring speeches of the 20th century for my book, Words That Shook the World, 100 Years of Unforgettable Speeches and Events. I've also analyzed the speeches of Barack Obama for television and radio, including his historic acceptance speech at Invesco Field in Denver, Colorado. My fascination with Barack Obama began in 2004, and I immediately told my clients around the world and the general public in articles that Barack Obama would be elected president in 2008 because he knew and used the 5 secrets we reveal on this DVD. And now, the 5 communication secrets that swept Barack Obama to the presidency. So let's talk about secret number 1, words, voice tone, and body language, how to use those incredibly effectively. Barack Obama is a fantastic example of that. First, the 7% of communication that is words. It's very important that you do that right. The first thing about using words is that you use sensory-specific words rather than abstract words. Now, let me be specific about that, and let's refer to Barack Obama. Instead of, in the very beginning of his speech, instead of saying, and my father grew up in Kenya as a poor person, or he was poor, he said,
he grew up herding goats, went to school in a tin roof shack. His father, my grandfather, was a cook, a domestic servant to the British.
He grew up herding goats and going to school in a tin roof hut. Can you see it? Is it specific? Yes, much more powerful than saying he was poor. The second thing is you want in your language and your words to be user-friendly, to use words that everybody can relate to rather than using jargon. A lot of people make that mistake. You're so smart, you've learned all of this jargon. Don't use it unless you're absolutely certain that someone is going to be able to understand that. Barack Obama didn't use a lot of political doublespeak or political jargon. You could relate to every single word that he used.
And to those Americans whose support I have yet to earn, I may not have won your vote tonight, but I hear your voices. I need your help, and I will be your president too.
The most important thing, though, and so incredibly powerful, whether you're a politician or you're in business or you're just entertaining people at a dinner or having a drink on Friday night, is to tell stories rather than to download unending amounts of data. We've all experienced people who just go on and on and on with data. Hard to listen to, but the only words I think that have never been spoken in any language is mommy or daddy, please don't tell me another story. What do kids usually say? And you probably, if you have kids, you probably can relate to this, and we all were kids. Please, 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 I promise I'll go to bed. Just tell me one more story. I promise I'll brush my teeth. Just tell me one more story. That is because human beings are literally neurologically programmed to adore, to be fascinated by stories. Tell stories. Barack Obama tells one story after another after another.
This election had many firsts and many stories that will be told for generations, but one that's on my mind tonight is about a woman who cast her ballot in Atlanta. She is a lot like the millions of others who stood in line to make their voice heard in this election, except for one thing. Ann Nixon Cooper is 106 years old. She was born just a generation past slavery, a time when there were no cars on the road or planes in the sky, when someone like her couldn't vote for two reasons: because she was a woman and because of the color of her skin. And tonight, I think about all that she's seen throughout her century in America: the heartache and the hope, the struggle and the progress, the times we were told that we can't, and the people who pressed on with that American creed: yes, we can.
That is part of his power. We can all relate to stories on a deep, primal level. So that's just words. That's just the 7%. Obama does a great job on all of those things. The voice tone is 38%, according to a study that was done back in 1968. How do you use your voice tone? Barack Obama uses it brilliantly. Here's the most important thing about voice tone. How many of you ever listened to somebody speak who was monotone, right? So you want the opposite of that. We don't like monotone. It puts us to sleep, puts us into a hypnotic state. So the first thing about voice tone is you want to vary your voice, right? Making it interesting, a little bit different from one time to the other. What are the ways that we vary our voice? Great communicators vary it 3 ways, and you can do this. It's so simple. You can vary it through volume. Sometimes you can speak loudly. Hi, this is really important, and I want to tell you this, right? And then if it's even more important than that, you can speak softly. Here is something that's really important. Notice, actually, how by speaking softly, it's more compelling than speaking loudly. And that's kind of counterintuitive. But notice how Barack Obama does that.
I will send once more a message to those yearning faces beyond our shores that says, you matter to us. Your future is our future, and our moment is now. America, our moment is now.
Secondly, you can change, you can vary the pace, sometimes fast, blah, 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 and sometimes, when it's even more important, very, very slowly. Counterintuitively, the more slowly you actually communicate, the more people pay attention, as long as there's a variation, that you're not only slow or you're not only fast. Notice how Barack Obama varies the pace of his voice. Very compelling.
The fundamentals we use to measure economic strength are whether we are living up to that fundamental promise that has made this country great. A promise that is the only reason I am standing here tonight. Because in the faces of those young veterans who come back from Iraq and Afghanistan, I see my grandfather, who signed up after Pearl Harbor, marched in Patton's army, and was rewarded by a grateful nation with the chance to go to college on the GI Bill.
The third thing is pitch. Sometimes high pitch and sometimes low pitch, and varying up and down. So 3 ways to vary: through volume, loud and soft, through pace, fast and slow, and through pitch, high and low. Obama, great on that.
I don't want to see that the oceans have risen a few more inches. The planet has reached a point of no return because we couldn't find a way to stop buying oil from dictators.
The second thing, and this is so easy, one of the ways to help vary your speeches or your communications is to punctuate. And you'll notice on the screen, I've written it in kind of a funny way. Punc, P-U-N-C-T-U-A-T-E. And that is to illustrate the exact point. Instead of saying punctuate and having there be no variation and nothing that stands out with words that are multisyllables or with words one from the other, you actually punctuate. So you can punctuate one of two ways. And Obama does it really well both of these ways. One is punctuate by word. This is really important, right?
It is also about what you, the people who love this country, the citizens of the United States of America, can do to change it. That's what this election is all about.
Or you can punctuate by syllable. This is really important. Okay, this is very important. This is fundamentally critical. And notice how Barack Obama does this.
There is not a liberal America and a conservative America. There is the United States of America. And I won't just talk about how great teachers are. As president, I will reward them for their greatness by raising salaries and giving them more support. That's why I'm in this race.
Punctuating is like taking a yellow marker and saying this word or this phrase or this sentence is really important. And then people will pay more attention to that. It's so simple. And the fourth part of using your voice tone in a compelling way. That's right. It's the pause. You cannot be a great communicator without being able to use the pause. Even Martin Luther King, if he said, I have a dream that one day, but he said, no, I have a dream, pause, 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 that one day this nation. So he used punctuation, he used a lot of variation in his voice tone, but he knew how to use the pause. And Barack Obama has learned from Dr. Martin Luther King and other great speakers, and notice how he does that as well.
A little less than 1 year from today, you will go into the voting booth and you will select the next president of the United States of America. But the question you're going to have to ask yourself when you caucus in January and you vote in November is, what's next for America?
It breaks it up. It allows people to digest what you're saying, because when you speak, it's not about you. Whether you're speaking to one person or a bunch of people, it's about them and allowing them to get it, to absorb it, to digest it, to feel it. That's what makes a great speaker, and being someone who can pause is a big part of that. The next quality of voice tone, and one that is often overlooked, is resonance. Our voice is an amazing instrument, and we can either play it like a violin, thin and scratchy, a cello, which would be more midline, or a bass, deep, resonating, just like we hear from Walter Cronkite, Barbara Jordan, and of course, Barry White. This does take some practice, so we've provided some very specific exercises for you to be able to increase the level of resonance in your voice so that you, with your voice, can shake the world.
A party that doesn't just focus on how to win, but why we should. A party that doesn't just offer change as a slogan, but real, meaningful change. Change that America can believe in.
So let's now talk about body language. 7% communication, the words, 38% voice tone, 55% body language. Sounds like a lot, but notice this. The most important thing about body language is that visual impression that you create when you're speaking. So if I take my shoulders and I just drop them down like this, and I'm speaking like this, I mean, it's embarrassing to even do it, Is there a different communication? You bet. Do I look less authoritative, less like I know what I'm talking about, less confident? Now, I'm exactly the same person, but just going from here, the shoulders, to here creates a completely different impression. Notice how Barack Obama, like Ronald Reagan, like Bill Clinton, and even like Franklin Roosevelt in a wheelchair, the shoulders are up.
We must provide more ladders to success for young men who fall into lives of crime and despair. But we must also admit that programs alone can't replace parents.
Body language is such a fascinating thing. The body never lies. I want you to remember this. The body never lies, and the body always speaks first. So if someone's going like this and they're withdrawn, you can assume, whether it's your wife or your kid or a client, that you have lost them, that they are disengaged, they have closed down. Now, there's a lot of factors to pay attention to, but if you get a feeling that someone that you're talking to has disengaged because of their body language, go with that. Change things, vary your voice tone, change the subject, turn around, ask them a question. Notice how Barack Obama is very tuned into the audience, and that leads me to the second point, and that is eye contact. When you're communicating with someone, if you're only thinking about what you're going to say and you're not paying attention to them, you're not going to be a very good communicator, whether you're speaking to a large group or one-on-one. It is eye contact, because all communication is what? It's about the other person. People desperately desire to be acknowledged. Just your paying attention to them with your eye contact will allow them to feel that you are the kind of person that they want to communicate with in the personal situation or in a business situation. Now, how more likely in a business situation, how do you get to a place where people look at you and they go, wow, this person is really impressive? Well, we talked about the shoulders, right? We talked about the eye contact. You're making them feel like they're important. You're paying attention to them. Something magical about the gestures. Now, don't go like this, right? Because that is boring. You want to communicate. You want to be, I often tell my classes, you want to be more Italian. You want to use your hands. Let that energy flow. But notice the difference between this, and then we'll look at Barack Obama do this, between this gesturing up and gesturing down, gesturing down, gesturing down. Which is more authoritative? Which is more impressive? Which communicates that you are someone that needs to be paid attention to? It is down. You are literally planting your words, your perspective, your knowledge. You're planting it into the ground. And people will pay much more attention to you and regard what you're saying as far more authoritative than if your hands are going up. This is like I'm throwing it away. It's not that important, as opposed to I'm planting it here. Also, when you gesture, notice this. If I'm gesturing off to the side, it's like I'm throwing it away. You want to, like a basketball player, everything is centered, a baseball player, everything is centered and balanced. You want to gesture within your shoulders. This is what we call the power zone. So down and within the shoulders. That's what communicates enormous center and balance and power. And notice how Barack Obama does exactly this.
We can make this election not about fear, but about the future. And that won't just be a Democratic victory. That will be an American victory. And that is a victory that America needs right now.
Before we get into secret two, the lasered compelling message, I want to share something that is possibly the most important thing that any communicator could possibly learn. And it has nothing to do with speaking. It is listening. The best communicators are the best listeners. And that happens when you're speaking to a large group or one-on-one. Now, why is that? It is all based on the basic human need to be acknowledged, to be heard, to be seen. And if you are listening to someone that you're communicating with, whether it's your spouse or your kid or your boss or a client or a customer, you are communicating non-verbally. Remember, body language is 55%. You're communicating that that person is important. And they, of course, are going to believe that as well. So you're going to have this incredible commonality of interest. He cares about me. I care about me. I like this guy. Just by shutting up, just by listening. There's two different ways to listen. One is to listen in a what I call RTP fashion, ready to pounce. You're listening, but you're You're booting up all of these other things to say, to respond, to prove how darn smart you are, and that your point is the most important point. That doesn't work in personal communication or in business communication. This is so incredibly important. The great communicators listen in a whole different way. I call it tabula rasa listening, blank slate. 3 different things that they're doing. They're absorbing it without responding. I'm totally listening to you. You're the most important person in the world. Charismatic human beings do this without exception. The second thing they then do is they pause and then they digest that information. The third thing they then do is then respond. So instead of doing it all together, ready to pounce, I'm listening, I'm digesting, and I'm responding all at the same time. You're actually making the person that you're communicating with the most important person in the world. And they deserve 100% attention when they are speaking. And then you take the time to digest and then communicate it back. Notice with Barack Obama, you say, well, how does that apply to a speech? Do you get the sense that he is communicating with the audience and responding to the audience? When they're laughing, when they're responding, he's absorbing it. He's totally focused with his eye contact on the people there. He made, and I was there at the Fleet Center in Boston during the Democratic National Convention, he made everybody there feel like we were important, that he was talking not just to hear himself talk, not just to be a typical politician, but because he really cared that we understood and felt what it was that was in his heart. Very compelling. Big reason why people were cheering him, not only then, but for the next 4 years. So body language includes a certain kind of listening that allows the other person to feel that they are being acknowledged at every moment. I cannot overstate how important that is. Perhaps the most important thing about body language is one that is best described in Eastern disciplines, especially the martial arts and Zen Buddhism. It is the concept of being centered. Words delivered from this place have more impact. Voice tone delivered from this place has more impact. The one who is centered, the calm in the storm, balanced, unflappable, engenders trust and generates authority and impact all the way to the core of anyone who watches. Barack Obama is the most centered leader in American history. The only other world leaders at his level are Nelson Mandela, the former president of South Africa, and Mahatma Gandhi, the former leader of India. If we had video to confirm this, one could, however, imagine that that other tall, lanky politician from Illinois, Abraham Lincoln, had the same center to his way of communicating. Now, secret number 2, when you're gonna say something, say it in a way, like we talked about before, that is memorable. The only thing to fear is fear itself. I have a dream. Ask not what your country can do for you. Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall. Those things, these lasered, compelling messages, are encapsulating all sorts of thoughts and feelings and emotions and everything all together. So before you speak, figure out what it is that you want people to take away with them. What is your message?
For when we have faced down impossible odds, when we've been told we're not ready, or that we shouldn't try, or that we can't, generations of Americans have responded with a simple creed that sums up the spirit of a people. Yes, we can. Yes, we can. Yes, we can.
Here's the secret. It's a really simple thing. And all great communicators, both individually and to groups, follow this in one way or another. And that is, what is it that I feel? Communicate that. And what is it that I want? So when you're having a conversation with a friend and they're going on and on and on, say, stop. What do you feel? Or what are you feeling right now? And then secondarily, what is it that you want? Those are the 2 most important things to be communicated in a personal context or in a political context. Notice how Barack Obama does that.
I don't want that future for my daughters. I don't want that future for your sons. I do not want that future for America.
It is that promise that's always set this country apart. That through hard work and sacrifice, each of us can pursue our individual dreams, but still come together as one American family to ensure that the next generation can pursue their dreams as well.
Talks about his feelings about America and how we all are one country and there's no red states, there's no blue states, we're all America. It's that purple speech. That is a feeling, his passion about America. What does he want? He wants a country that reflects that unity, that coming together, that purpleness, as it were. So you can do that in a conversation with your daughter or with your son or with your spouse. You know, what are you feeling? You're going on and on. Stop. Time out. What are you feeling and what do you want? And when you communicate, share what you're feeling and what you want. So let's notice how Barack Obama does that in a macro, in a large context, and you can do the same thing at home. You can make your communications shorter and be much more to the point. We call it the lasered compelling message.
It was a creed written into the founding documents that declared the destiny of a nation. Yes, we can. It was whispered by slaves and abolitionists as they blazed a trail towards freedom through the darkest of nights. Yes, we can. It was sung by immigrants as they struck out from distant shores and pioneers who pushed westward against an unforgiving wilderness. Yes, we can. It was the call of workers who organized, women who reached for the ballot, a president who chose the moon as our new frontier, and a king who took us to the mountaintop and pointed the way to the promised land. Yes, we can to justice and equality. And together, we will begin the next great chapter in the American story with 3 words that will ring from coast to coast, from sea to shining sea. Yes, we can. Thank you, New Hampshire. Thank you. Thank you.
Secret number 3 is what I call the communication effectiveness continuum. If you're on one side, you're not going to be very effective. If you're on the other side of the continuum, you're going to be effective all the time, all the time. On the bad side are people who are performing. They're speaking at an audience because it's all about them. It's an ego-filled kind of communication. In the middle is where most people are, is they're making presentations. It's all about the information. Let me just present this information to you and then I'm done. One of the reasons that people responded so powerfully to Barack Obama in his initial keynote address in 2004 and after that is because they don't get a sense that he is preaching at them. They get a sense more that he is having a conversation with them. And that is an incredibly subtle but powerful secret of all great communicators. Ronald Reagan, John F. Kennedy, and even Franklin Roosevelt, when he was doing his radio addresses, he didn't call it the fireside performance or the fireside presentation. What did he call it? Fireside chat. It's just that sense of I'm including you. We're all together. We're just having a conversation. It makes it so much more fun. So go into every communication like that. And you'll see if you're performing at someone, you come off as being very preachy. And people have a lot of resistance to that. Or you're presenting and it's all about the information, as opposed to what Barack Obama and other great speakers do is let's just have a conversation. Because people neurologically can appreciate and absorb conversation much more than they can presentation or performance. Now, the super great speakers, like Dr. Martin Luther King and Barack Obama, go even beyond that, where they drop all of that and they just, for a brief moment, you have a sense that there is no separation.
So I'm not worried about CEOs. I'm not worried about corporate lobbyists. I'm not worried about the drug companies or the oil companies or the insurance companies. They'll be fine. They're going to look out for themselves. I'm worried about the couple that's trying to figure out how they're going to retire. I'm worried about the family that's trying to figure out how they can save for their child's college education. I'm worried about the single mom that doesn't have health insurance. I'm worried about the guy who's worked in a plant for 20 years and suddenly sees his job shipped overseas. That's who I'm worried about.
That's who I'm going to be fighting for and thinking about every single day that I'm in the White House.
Notice what's going on here. It's a completely different relationship. It's not a performance at, it's not a presentation to, it's not even a conversation with. It's just Barack Obama saying, I'm just going to come here, I'm going to rip myself open, I'm going to be raw, I'm going to be naked. Let us create a better country for ourselves and our children. Secret number 4, the 4 languages of communication. If you only speak 1, you're a terrible communicator. If you speak 2, you're average. If you speak 3, you're pretty darn good. If you speak 4, you're a charismatic superstar. You have to be able to enter another person's world and speak their language. If you are going to get your message across, if you're going to be able to speak to everyone that you want to speak to and have them pay attention to you and respect you, and these 4 languages are as different as Swahili is to Spanish, is to Hebrew, is to German, is to Japanese. What are these 4 languages? Real simple. The visual language related to the visual part of the brain, the part that processes light, which is traveling at 186,000 miles a second, trillions of hertz, is the high energy excitement language. Think Robin Williams. Barack Obama, clearly, because of the crowds he was able to amass during his campaign, he knew how to do that. That is the secret. You put out energy, energy comes back.
The pundits like to slice and dice our country into red states and blue states. Red states for Republicans, blue states for Democrats. But I've got news for them too. We worship an awesome God in the blue states, and we don't like federal agents poking around in our libraries in the red states. We coach Little League in the blue states, and yes, we've got some gay friends in the red states. There are patriots who opposed the war in Iraq, and there are patriots who supported the war in Iraq. We are one people, all of us pledging allegiance to the Stars and Stripes, all of us defending the United States of America.
The second language is called auditory. That is the part that Ronald Reagan was the master at. He could take anything that he saw, that he thought about, that he felt, and he could put it into easy to understand language. Is it easy to understand? Are you articulate? That is what's so important to auditory people. They need to understand the words.
That is the true genius of America. A faith in simple dreams, an insistence on small miracles, that we can tuck in our children at night and know that they are fed and clothed and safe from harm, that we can say what we think, write what we think without hearing a sudden knock on the door, that we can have an idea and start our own business without paying a bribe.
Auditory digital is a whole different part of that auditory part of your brain. It's the Albert Einstein part. It's the Bill Gates part. Is there substance? Is there depth? Is there detail? Because some people crave that. You can't have credibility with many people unless you have that part of your brain where you can back up what you're saying as opposed to just big picture. Oh, I think this is, no. Give it some foundation. Give it some support. Barack Obama does that beautifully.
I'll invest $15 billion a year in energy efficiency and renewable sources of energy, like wind, solar, and biofuels, creating 5 million clean energy jobs over the next decade, jobs that pay well and can never be outsourced.
But the most important language, the part that everybody is born with, but most of us throw away, we discard, it gets programmed and beaten out of us, is the sensitive, emotional, feeling part. We call this in neuro-linguistic programming the kinesthetic language or the kinesthetic mode. That is the part that allows you to connect with your spouse, with your child, with someone at work, or if you're a politician, with your audience.
I am not in this race to fulfill some long-held ambitions or because I believe it's somehow owed to me. I never expected to be here. I always knew this journey was improbable. I've never been on a journey that wasn't. I am running in this race because of what Dr. King called the fierce urgency of now. Because I believe that there's such a thing as being too late, and that hour is almost upon us. I don't want to wake up 4 years from now and find out that millions of Americans still lack health care because we couldn't take on the insurance industry.
Understanding these 4 languages is possibly the most important thing you can do for your relationships, your personal relationships. Some of you know that I had the great honor of being invited to Kensington Palace to coach, advise Princess Diana. And in getting to know Princess Diana and understand her relationship with Prince Charles, it dawned on me that there was no way in the world that those two people would ever have a relationship that worked. And so I created something that I call the Princess Diana, Prince Charles syndrome. And this will help you understand it perfectly. Princess Diana brilliantly spoke the visual human language, brilliantly spoke the kinesthetic human language. She was idealistic, she was visionary, she was excited, she was childlike, she was spontaneous. That's the visual part. She was also very feeling and very emotional and very sensitive and very vulnerable. That's the kinesthetic part. But her husband, and this describes many situations at home, people that I know all over the world, was not visual, was not kinesthetic. He instead was a 2-language communicator, but the 2 other languages, the auditory, the articulate wordsmith, and the auditory digital, the data-driven wonky person. So literally, there was one 2-language communicator trying to have a relationship with another 2-language communicator, but no frequencies matched. There were no gears that meshed, and therefore no communication, no real communication can happen. You solve these problems by you being the one to develop all of the languages so that you can communicate with anyone, anywhere, anytime, and they'll always listen to you. The 5th secret, as I said in the beginning, is probably the most important, and that is anytime you speak, whether it's at home or at work, I want it to be driven by what we call authentic passion. That's what made Martin Luther King great, John F. Kennedy, Ronald Reagan. Anytime you speak to one person or to many people, it's got to come from that place of you wanting to make a difference in the world, you wanting to make a difference in your world or in their world. And you have to tap into it. So how do you find that? How do you locate that? How does someone like Barack Obama find that passion that ignites audiences of 40, 50, 60, 70,000 people? You ask yourself the right question, and that is not, what do I want to say, or what should I say, or what am I supposed to say, because that's taking away all of your power. The great communicators ask themselves one question: what is so incredibly cool about what it is that I'm talking about? You have to be turned on to turn on others. You have to be inspired to turn on others. It's all about them, but you have to light that fire inside of yourself. That is what Barack Obama does. That's what Martin Luther King did, Ronald Reagan, John F. Kennedy, Franklin Roosevelt, Winston Churchill, all great speakers come to their speaking.
I will never forget that the only reason that I'm standing here today is because somebody, somewhere, stood up for me when it was risky, stood up when it was hard,
stood up when it wasn't popular. And because that somebody stood up, a few more stood up, and then a few thousand stood up, and then a few million stood up. And standing up with courage and clear purpose, they somehow managed to change the world.
And that's the secret. Whether you are communicating about something very important like the direction, the future of our country, or something as seemingly insignificant as what you're going to have for dinner that night. The key is to be authentic and to never lie, to always be real, to always be honest. A politician is naked standing up in front of a large group of people. They have to be completely authentic, and they have to share their passions in an authentic way. They can't manipulate. They can't exploit people because it may work once or twice, but it's not going to work over a long period of time. And the same thing at home. You have to be completely real and completely honest. And that goes back to the previous secret, the laser compelling message. What am I feeling and what do I want? Well, I'm feeling a little uncomfortable about this idea about what we're going to do tonight or what we're going to do for our vacation. And what I really want is to just stay home. What I really want is to go to a different movie. It's that simple. It's a micro version of a Barack Obama or a Martin Luther King or a Ronald Reagan or a John F. Kennedy speaking their authentic truth to hundreds or thousands or hundreds of thousands. But it's perhaps the most important thing that we do, is to be authentic and to share our passion.
That's why I'm running Iowa. To give our children and grandchildren the same chances somebody gave me. That's why I'm running, Democrats. To keep the American dream alive for those who still hunger for opportunity, who still thirst for equality. That's why I'm asking you to stand with me. That's why I'm asking you to caucus for me. That's why I'm asking you to stop settling for what the cynics say we have to accept. In this election, in this moment, let us reach for what we know is possible. A nation healed, a world repaired, an America that believes again. Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you.
So for 24 years, it has been my passion to share the things that I have learned in my study of communication and politics and psychology with people to help them communicate so that they can achieve their dreams. Again, may not want to be the President of the United States, but I guarantee you that you probably want more from your life than what you have in terms of your relationships, in terms of your career. And the secret, the way, the pathway for all of that, and I've never ever seen it to be otherwise, is through more effectively and authentically communicating what is in your gut, what is in your heart, what is in your mind to another person or to many other people. Barack Obama has achieved the success that he has achieved, this meteoric rise, because he has been able to do that consistently under the microscope of the entire country. And he has been rewarded for that. You can do the same thing. And I hope that by his example, whether you agree with him politically or not, you will be inspired to use some of the secrets that he has used to achieve his success and the fulfillment of his dreams, for you to be able to do that for you in your life. Thank you very much.
America, we have come so far. We have seen so much, but there's so much more to do. So tonight, let us ask ourselves, if our children should live to see the next century, if my daughters should be so lucky to live as long as Ann Nixon Cooper, what change will they see? What progress will we have made? This is our chance to answer that call.
This is our moment. This is our time to put our people back to work and open doors of opportunity for our kids, to restore prosperity and promote the cause of peace, to reclaim the American dream and reaffirm that fundamental truth that out of many we are one, that while we breathe, we hope, and where we are met with cynicism and doubt and those who tell us that we can't, we will respond with that timeless creed that sums up the spirit of a people. Yes, we can. Thank you. God bless you, and may God bless the United States of America.